Hey everybody, back again with Batman. I know everybody's been asking me for this one for a while, and I hope it's been worth the wait. As long as I've been doing these cards, everybody's been after me to do the DC Trinity, and I've been putting them off and off and off and off and off, and did Wonder Woman in the mix, and now Batman. Still haven't broken down and done Superman yet, but you never know. But for now, we have Batman. And as many of you know, this character is one of my personal favorites, but it's a mixed bag, as it were, with how I appreciate this character. They're doing a really good job in the films. I still think Michael Keaton was the best incarnation. Ben Affleck looks like a better Batman on screen, but I think that as far as the persona of Batman, Keaton was still the best one from the '89 movie because of the fact that what people don't get is this character has been watered down a lot over the last few years, especially since he got his back broke in the late '90s, and Nightfall happened and all that. That was a rough storyline, and a lot of people don't realize he is a totally different character compared to what he was pre Nightfall. Um, this character's passion is driven. He's driven and focused by and fueled by the fact that his parents were killed, but he's not a rampaging emotional monster. He's actually a very experienced and calm and collected and tactical detective, and they're starting to get back to that, to where he's not angry all the time, but hopefully they're going to get that incarnation where he'll get that intelligence, that deep, quiet intelligence back, instead of the growling, grimacing, always ticked off character that we see, because that's not what the character is. He is just as personified rather than more of a monster like people portray him as. So a lot of deep thought goes into that stuff, because that character's got a lot of backstory and a lot of lineage to hold up to, and a lot of people don't give him that credit. So and don't get me wrong here, the face isn't too long. I'm going to cut this down because there's a boxed shadow underneath that from where the light cuts. I know a bunch of people are thinking, dang, that face is long. No, 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 no. Not at all. We're going to cut that way down. I just want that to be the first mark to set the standard, so you guys can see the face, and we can get all that going and go from there. But yep. Matter of fact, I'm going to slim this nose way down because I don't like the look of it. There we go. Pop in those mandibles. And we're off to the races. With all the cons going on, I appreciate you guys popping on, Um, everybody seems to be out and about and not at home this weekend, which that's fine. More power to them. I'm actually home working right now. Uh, I'm more of a production artist rather than a promotional artist. I rather get more material done while I can, and not be out at the shows trying to show it off and be a huckster and whatnot. Not to knock anybody that does that. It's just for me personally, I'd rather be producing books than worrying about promoting them right off the bat, because there's a difference to it and what I do. So, but I get to hang out with you guys, so that definitely works out. Okay, got that arm there. Now, even though my favorite rendition of Batman is still the blue and gray suit, I'm going to make this one um, a hybrid of that. Because, I mean, as you can tell by the ears and stuff, I like the classic blue and gray suit from the late 70s, early 90s. I'm sorry, early 80s. And then it went black back to the classic in the 90s with the film and the animated series and all that. And it's gone down from there. But I originally stick with the blue and gray suit. That's my favorite. That's the comics I grew up with as Batman. Like I said, pre-Nightfall, where he got into the black suit and changed his persona and all that. I don't really follow everything from the current stuff. I liked Greg's work, Greg Capullo, but I'm not all about the new modern Batman. I'm just not about it because he seems weak to me. But either weak or rampaging Wolverine style angry, and that's not the way the character worked. But not going to get on a soapbox about it. Just saying, I was a Neil Adams detective comics type of fan, where they brought Batman back from that transition where he was the mobster fighter, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s when he was created, and then he went into this this weird phase with the 60s spoof stuff, crossing over into the comics, and then the cartoons, getting him G-rated and whatnot. And yeah, Batman went through a lot of hard transitions there for a while. Back in the day, Bob Kane was trying to bank on everything that he could get his hands on as far as Batman, and that's where that all came from. He was banking on it. He had a one-trick pony, and he was a huckster, and he didn't even own it. As we all found out many years later, Bob Finger actually created the Batman that we know. So, and many of the characters. So it was a big deal. And I grew up knowing about Bill Finger and Bob Kane's dispute because of the fact that it was all over the Comic Con back in the day when they started. When I was a little kid, they used to talk about it all the time, and I would hear about Bill Finger and what a great guy he was and how he created Batman and whatnot. And there were disputes back then, and oh yeah. And everybody used to talk about him being a knockoff, but then Bob Kane used to come in and say, Bill Finger created Batman. I created Batman, but Bill Finger, had influence on it. And without Bill Finger, I wouldn't have this influence. And, I wish we could have done more with Bill Finger and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, come on, man. The dude helped you out and hooked you up with a character, and then you ripped him off. So, well, whatever. Unfortunately, that's the monstrous industry that Bob Kane worked in. I don't believe in comics like that. I'm all about community. So, but after the 60s, when Neil Adams was asked to come back in from DC, he was put on the Batman books, and asked to take him and revamp him and bring him back, bring him back up to top sales, because the sales were looming because of the fact that, after the 60s, everybody stopped reading this spoof funny stuff because all, the hippie kids and whatnot were growing up and getting jobs and moving on and whatnot. And it was a lull in Batman sales. And they brought in Neil Adams, and he actually helped bring him back to being the Dark Knight that we now know. So he took the best of both worlds from the classic comics, the classic mob hero vigilante, and what we knew from the 60s, and combined it and made a great detective. So I always give the dude props for that. And I mean, you can see it plain as day in his stories. That's exactly what's going on. So, I mean, not necessarily that he wrote them. It was more because he worked with some phenomenal writers. It was more about the artistic interpretation from Neil himself. But yeah, check out a bunch of that old stuff if you guys get an opportunity. Check out those old comics because they will blow your mind. Because the comics out today are just, I mean, I know everybody says that, but I'm serious. I read everything at least once and give it a shot, and those comics are just on a totally different level than what we know now. They're dark, they're gritty, they're mature in storytelling. Um, they're not campy, and it's all about Batman back when Batman was Batman. So I'm gonna have to thicken up this hand a little bit so that I can box it out and block it out a little more. And I want this stuff to look like more of the padded glove and not some kind of weird pressed ham, because that's starting to look a little bit like a butt. It's looking weird. It ran across the abdominals, and that's the reason why it did that. But it lined up perfectly with where I sketched the abdominals. But that's okay because the abdominals fall in right behind it right here. And that's the reason I darkened it up so it didn't all run together. And I'll make that pop out a little more. Now, got that other one barely on the card. This is a very clean, simple version of Batman. Got the buckle right here. I'm giving him the old gold utility belt, no pouches. Just the typical lock and stock classic action figure Super Friends style belt. And gonna pump in this chest here. That was always a distinguishing mark with Batman. He always had a big puffed up chest. Like Superman, he had to be in comparison to, so they would always give him like just a big chest for chops. So I know I said I was going to mix this up a little, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in the big modern black bat symbol. I'm going to crop it down just a little. Yeah, we'll move that back over just a little bit. I'm going to mark this in a little so I can go ahead and shade that and get those guides going. So that's funny, give him a little bit more of a 90s look with that shallow, that deep, skinny lined bat. That'll be the bottom of the chest right there. And the top of it will run up underneath the cape there, run up under the edge of the cowl. He's kind of swaying over. I'm going to put some of this in shadow to make it streamline down a little bit. Drop in the shadows for the chest here. There we go. I'm going to leave it open for the gray suit. So what we'll have is a gray and black at the end of the day here. And going to have a heavy gray cape. I couldn't decide in the background if I was going to go with Killer Croc or if I was going to go with someone like Clayface that likes to hide underground as well. I was leaning towards Clayface earlier, but I decided to go with Killer Croc in the background later on, hence the fin on his head. Which he will be 100% silhouette anyway, so we won't even see him back there except for eyes and teeth. See, that brings that fabric look right up. That's super easy. Now here's where the care is needed, because if you over detail the front of his face, it'll blind him out. You have to kind of draw in that forehead. It's almost like the 60s mask with that forehead wrapped in fabric. But because this is the dark side, because we have to make that silhouette, we have to darken this out so that we have that silhouette. So what we're going to do is going to pop in some highlights right here along the way to show that, you know, he's there, determined, and has features on his face. I'm actually not liking that. That works. Okay. And we're going to leave just a little bit of a ridge line. Like I said on the other day, if you guys saw me do the trio, like I said the other day, you have to give Batman this impression of eyebrows, because if you don't, it takes the total emotion off of his face. It really does. It kills it right off. So what I'm going to do here is, because this is the top of his head, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a circle like this and make that highlight work in my favor there. So you can see that happening. Now, what I'm going to make happen here is I'm going to put just a little bit of highlight right there on the outlight, like the outside's being lit up by the wall, which is right here. And then right over here we'll have a little crest of light as well from a real low light to give that a feature. And we'll leave him that nose rim right there from the top light coming down, hitting the edge of it. So we'll have that. Get him grimacing a little bit. Put in a little scowl. Go very simple with these. Abdominals and ribs. Just giving them a little drop shadow to pop them out. There we go. Just to liven him up just a little. Now this glove is going to be a little different. We have to exaggerate the light on this because it's up front and we don't want to black the whole thing out. So we have kind of a Venom thing going on where we light the outer edges just a bit to leave a highlight. And then we have the old fingers popping out there. Starting to sound like Todd McFarlane. What was it he said, the old Digiotos the other day? Sounds like a Pokemon character. I'm not knocking Todd, he's awesome. Without Todd and the Image Boys, we wouldn't have the revival in the industry, the bubble, as it were. Which I don't know if we'll ever see that kind of marketing bubble again in comics until the industry does a total 180 changeover. But we won't go there. We'll see what happens. I'm going to mark this out just a little bit, shade that down so we can see what's going on. And then shade off this glove. There we go. So we have Batman, we have the glove, we have the fingers. This is the forearm. This is the edge of the old bicep. And we have the delts right in here, which I'm not going to cut out completely. I just want to give a little ridge to them. A little flex. Because Batman's kind of a bulky, buffy guy. Just a little bit of weight to him, and that's it. Because I don't want to have to refine all of this. Because like I said before, I don't do the whole 3D photographic rendering type of thing. I'm more of an open color dependent animated style artist, and I'd rather not muck it up with all of the cross hatching and all that mess. It's not my thing, man. So let me get over here and start kicking this bad boy out. Go back to the 5 here so I can get this going in a finer line. I know it's going to be blacked out anyway, but still I want to make sure that it reflects what I want, which is the distance. And off in the distance, you need a smaller line. Play with your line weights. It's okay. You can play with your line weights. Put that on top of his head, kind of like a horn or a spike if it was a reptile. Drawing the eyes here. Not very reptilian, but like I said, it was going to be Clayface at first. See if I can make that work out. There we go. I'm starting to pull it off. Put some fangs in here. That'll be all blacked out. I'm gonna put in some put in a ceiling back here and some plumbing work to show that they're in the sewer. You got to set up your environment. So by doing that, you put in just little details like this will show where you're at. You know, the catacomb right behind him here, and then which will be backlighting for him. And then you put in like a pipe hanging down here and one over here. So now this will be blacked out as well. This ceiling will be blacked out. And the reason we black it out is because there's no light up there, and we want everything else to pop off. And it gives it that three-dimensional look, okay? That's the reason for that. It's contrast lighting. Comic card sketching 101. Especially with me, I love doing contrast lighting because it allows me to avoid the problem with me not detailing as much as I should and rendering as much as I should. I get to control it with the lighting, because when I put in contrast lighting, it counters all of that and gives me the detail that I need. You know, a lot of people argue that point, but it's true though. If you have 3 light points, you can guarantee that that something's going to get heavy shadow and heavy render just like you want, without you having to go in and put all those little details and cross hatches and all that mess. And like I said, I'm not knocking that. I love that style. It's just I don't draw that way. I don't draw that way. So, and yes, I'm doing a major no-no here, but I'm going to do it anyway, because watch what's going to happen. Because, you know, when you have a heavy line like this in the forefront, you're not supposed to do this right here, because then it gives that hard line, and it's hard to tell where everything's going on, right? Well, when you use multiple light sources and you have the top light, which is really soft and gives that border right there, and then you have the main light under here, which gives the front light on the face where everything shines up, then you don't have to worry about that, because all of it works out the way it's supposed to. You have that contrast lighting and you don't have to worry about that, because it lights it from 3 or 4 different points. And I'm going to do it this way so I don't tear up the edge of this card here, because that one's wanting to snag. Go ahead and knock this out. But anyway, putting a little hard edge right there so that I can go ahead and knock this out. But that's why I do that. It's because, you know, I wanted to control it. And now the way the conflicting light goes like this up here, you don't want to have black on black on black. This is the way you do that. You come in and you highlight one side of it, just one side of it, to give the presence that it's there. And you go in and you give the vicious jaw like that. Just one side of it is all it takes. And then extending that down, it shows the end of that jaw. So now it's going to show where I gave all of that shape. And then you put one opposing light right there. Just that little bit of light to bring things together. Now it shows something definitely nasty is back there. You don't know what it is, but it's back there. And this room back here, we can make a door right there, you know, for a catacomb. We can make a door right there. And now, you know, you don't know. I'm doing that with a 9. That's why it's so thick. There we go. So now we have that going on. We could have a backlight back here, make this one color and that a little bit darker, or a little bit lighter and give a contrasting light from back there. You never know. But nonetheless, that's where he's at right now. Now I'm going to go down here and draw in the cape. You put in the ribs for contrast so that it always gives some kind of light from the cape, whether you do it or not. That's why they draw those, because that's the contrast in the dark. You know, if he raises up the cape, you're going to be able to see that, and it's going to give that wicked highlight of, you know, the classic I'm Batman kind of thing going on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and I'm going to shade each of these a little bit different to show that cape contrast. And this is where I'll put my lines and stuff like that, because we want some of that front light to reflect up off the floor or water or whatever it is, and go from there and not have to worry about that. So we're going to have that hit, you know, I'll have it like this kind of thing. And that also breaks up the light from between Batman and the cape and the floor. So this is where the a little bit of cross hatching or a little bit of line effect would make a huge difference. And we'll do that in just a sec. Because it breaks it up big time. So now we've got all of that going on. See, it's got that flare down here. So you've got light, dark, light. And that makes him pop out a little bit more. Now with that, I'll come in and do it this way. And you have to go an alternative direction of your main character lines, like this. Now this one's going this way on the parallel, so I'll put these down like this. That way they cross a little bit more with what's going on and make them differentiate from where we're at. Just one or two in there, one or two in there. And now we have the cape popping off to where it doesn't clash with Batman or cover him up and absorb any of the major elements. So there you go. Now I like to leave this open because these are metal. I like to leave them open for color shading and whatnot, for detailing. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of a mark here. Now this one's going to have the bat symbol in it, so I have to shape that in a little bit. Because I like the bat symbol to be on the belt, you know, the logo. A lot of people just put the bat. I prefer to put the symbol with the ring around it. It's just a little more prominent. Not to mention the fact that it's easier to make into a light later. So, just saying. This is my take on it. You know what I'm going to do for fun here? I'm going to add in a ladder to make it look just like he crawled right into, fresh into the tunnel, so that we can see what's going on here. I want to make sure, right there. That's a technical effect. I just want to add that ladder of him climbing down. The idea of that is just really cool. So I didn't know if I was going to put brick lines there or what yet. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go right in here and I'm going to cut in the run right here. So you guys can watch this being created right here. Boom. We want to run it a little bit parallel to the angle he's at so that it looks ground level and he's like tilted over, like he's in an attack or defensive pose kind of thing. So we'll draw that in right there. There's that run, and we got that one. And let's see, we'll put them 1, 2, 3. So we'll put another one like right here. And then we'll go up here and let's see, 1, 2. Yeah, we'll get the bottom one. We'll put the bottom of the top one right here. Okay, like that. Now I'll go ahead and draw through that a little bit and put that up there so it looks like the runs are in place. Now we have Batman crawling around the sewer, scoping for the bad guy. So that is it for today. I ran over a little bit because I wanted to go into that detail a little more, but this was a special one though. This is card number 88, believe it or not. That is exactly a fact. There are 88 of these bad boys out there in this collection. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. If you're hanging out with me today, tomorrow is going to be the Riddler, and that's going to be a fun one. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. Catch you next time.